Oh, we just got a CPI report. Inflation rising 3.2%, above the expectations of 3.1%. Core CPI inflation fell to 3.8%, but that's above the expectations of 3.7%. That is 35 consecutive months with inflation above 3% and a second straight increase. I don't see how the Fed starts cutting rates anytime soon. That being said, as everyone's pinching pennies and trying to figure out how to save a buck, can the folks in Topeka get that done? We know that Republicans want to pass a flat income tax rate for all Kansans. Thus far, that has been unsuccessful. They have been unable to override Governor Laura Kelly's veto. Dave Trabert is with the Kansas Policy Institute, and he joins us on KCMO. He was testifying on behalf of this flat tax in Topeka here in the last few days. Dave, good morning. How did that go for you?
Well, good morning, Pete. First, congrats on the new baby.
Oh, thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate that. All is well.
Actually, good. The hearing is today.
Okay.
And it's going to be interesting to see how it goes because it's hard to imagine what the objections are going to be. Senate Bill 539 is a really smart compromise that was developed by the Senate Tax Committee with Chair Karen Tyson. It's the savings in this is less than the previous flat tax, but it's a lot more than Governor Kelly's proposal. It's low-income folks get the largest dollar amount of savings in 2024, and they're almost as high as the highest incomes in the years going forward. Middle income gets about the same as the highest. It still has, as every flat tax does, it still has a progressive effective tax rate, and it eliminates the inflation tax that Governor Kelly wants to keep in there. Government profits.
What's the inflation tax?
From inflation. Well, okay, so here's an example. Let's say a married couple with 3 kids has a $40,000 adjusted gross income. If they got a 3% tax increase or a 3% pay increase, they would have a 7% increase in their state income tax. Whereas with the flat tax proposal, a 3% income increase would result in a 2% tax increase. There's
what
two elements? So first of all, when you with 3 rates, as you get just an inflationary increase, as you just said, inflation is up 3%. So if my pay goes up 3%, my buying power didn't go up, but my tax does because incremental income is taxed at a higher rate. The other thing this bill does, which is really smart, it indexes everything for inflation. The standard deduction, the personal exemption, and the amount that gets exempt from income. That's all indexed for inflation, so the government no longer profits from inflation.
All right, so what are we talking about? What would the flat tax be then? I know the Republicans wanted to get it down to, 5.25? What are we looking at now?
Well, it stays at 5.7. That's the current maximum rate. But they exempt the first $22,000 from income tax for families and the first $11,000 for single. There's also an increase.
Whereas what is that now? What is it now? Is there any?
Now it's 0.
Okay. So nothing is exempt now. So instead,
nothing's exempt now.
The top rate would stay at 5.7, but the first $22,000 for families would be exempt from income taxes.
That's right. So as a result, that $40,000 family, 3 kids, gets a $713 tax reduction. In other words, they pay 0.
Gotcha.
They would pay $713 today. Under the flat tax, they pay 0.
Well, this is pretty smart because I don't know how the governor could combat this because her big talking point has been, tax breaks for the rich. But if you're talking about exempting the first $22,000 for families or $11,000 for those who are single, it's really not about the rich. They're more or less paying the same. I mean, they're getting the same $22,000 exempt, but $22,000 exempt on $500,000 is a lot different than $22,000 exempt on $50,000.
That's right. I mean, even now, the rich, the wealthy, the rich, whatever you want to call them, get a little bit better savings because the flat tax starts at 5.7, but the next several years it goes down 0.05 of a point. So next year it would go to 5.65, then 5.6, and it keeps going down for several years. So, like in the third year, someone earning $1 million is only going to get a 3% reduction in their tax bill. Someone earning $200,000 saves $1,000, whereas that $40,000 income still saves almost $800.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty even because you start with the flat tax rate so high.
So, what do you think, Dave Trabert, with the Kansas Policy Institute? On the political side of this, I know that's not your bread and butter. You're really more of a nuts and bolts guy. But what do you think in terms of actually whether it's the governor signing something like this or, the Republicans overriding a veto?
The first pushback is going to be the false claim that this will break the bank. It won't. The previous flat tax would have left more than $4 billion in reserves 3 years into the plan. This will leave even more because it's going to cost. I mean, the official fiscal note, the estimate of the cost isn't published yet, but we know, they've indicated to Senator Tyson that this is like $50 to $70 million a year less. So we're going to have well over $4 billion in reserve 3 years in. It's affordable. That won't stop the opponents from saying it'll break the bank. They'll say, "Oh, Brownback."
Now, of course, that's what they're going to do. All right. So you still think that for something like this to pass, Dave, it will have to be overriding a veto. Is there anything to suggest, though, that the Republicans that sided with Laura Kelly are suddenly going to come to their senses, for lack of a better phrase, and do right by the people of Kansas?
Well, this shifts the dynamic. So I think there's a really good chance that some of the people who voted to sustain the override will vote to override this time, because otherwise it's an election year. They know they're going to get this hung around their necks, that they had a chance to give the biggest tax breaks to low-income people, and they passed on it for nothing more than to side with the governor.
Mm-hmm. Wow. All right. So you're going to be testifying on this today, and then I guess it could end up moving quickly either way through the House side of things first, right?
I do expect this one to move pretty quickly, yeah.
Okay. Well, Dave, good luck today. All right. Keep those knuckleheads up there in Topeka in check for us, would you?
All right, will do.
All right. Well done there by Dave Trabert on KCMO Talk Radio at the Kansas Policy Institute.